and you are watching Around Comics live on YouTube and Twitch and Twitter and Facebook and
MySpace,
my
Friendster.
We're going back in time. We're projecting this back in time to MySpace. And what's happening, fellas? Welcome to episode 392 of Around Comics. I'm Brian Salazar. With me, as always, is Christopher Niesman and Tom Cater.
Yeah.
The man in the middle.
Hey.
Tom,
I'm here.
Maybe I should start doing like UFC announcer Bruce Buffer. You know, what would your fight nickname be, Tom? Like if you were a fighter.
It's the kid. Tom the Kid Caters.
Tom the Kid Caters?
Writes itself.
Gentle touch. Tom Gentle touch.
Tom Gentle Touch Cater.
Soft touch. Yeah.
Not really intimidating.
Car wash soft touch. You know, effective.
Soft touch Caters.
It's gentle.
Very nice, very nice.
How powerful.
Welcome, gentlemen.
Yeah.
Hi. How are you guys doing?
Hello.
Well, I'm a little concerned. My camera is so zoomed into me.
You look like you're getting interrogated.
I didn't do it.
Yeah. Start from the top. Explain exactly what you.
Well,
I got a bone to pick with you, by the way.
No,
sir.
Sir. Already? What did I do?
Well, we were talking about what we had read this week. We usually have a text go around, and I'm like, I will absolutely try and read those. And you already billed the episode as me having read Destroy All Monsters. Which after I saw you post that, I went to Hoopla and checked it out and read the entire fucking thing this afternoon.
Good. There you go. I just got to put a little pressure on you, Chris, to make sure you're performing at your best.
The most insightful comments come from when you're shamed into quickly reading something.
Just burn through it real fast.
Like I was in high school again. It's like, oh shit, I got to get this report done before I
read.
Oh
my god!
I was actually trying to do you a favor because you said I had posted two things that I had read this week. I actually read two different trade paper collections, whatever the hell, and I posted them both. And you're like, "Well, I'll try and read them both." So I figured you would take
that one.
You know, that one. Because I didn't know if you were going to read the other one. The other one's actually a little longer, so I was trying to make it easy on you. I thought you had already maybe read it, but
you know what? It made for a delightful 90 minutes of curling up in on the back deck on the the glider we have out there. Got to spend about 90 minutes with my old friends Sean Phillips and Ed Brubaker.
It was in traffic, like holding up a book while you're like steering with one. I gotta get this done.
You gotta read the
time. There was a time.
Oh God, it's people are gonna expect.
Well, I'm just glad that I was able to bully you into. See, bullying is a good thing, folks. I know in this current climate we don't believe that that's the case, but
huge mistake. We need bullies.
Bullies are good.
Nerds are out of control. Nerds are out of control.
They really are. I mean, Jesus.
Hey, they got a little bit of power and see what's fucking happens.
Just like, shut up, nerds.
Shut up.
Shut up.
Shut up.
I did read other things.
Some shame can be a good thing sometimes, you know?
Yeah, I think we need that as a society.
You ever watch Big Mouth on Netflix?
Yes. Yes.
Yeah, you know the idea of the shame wizard, you know, like shame, he's not a bad guy. Like shame's good sometimes.
Sometimes you need to be kept in check. Like sometimes it's for your own good. Everything in moderation. You know, when it gets out of hand, you don't want to, be shaming people relentlessly.
Yeah. But occasionally it's good to be like, I should just keep my mouth shut.
Yeah.
Because I don't want to embarrass myself. But that
if I could ever learn that lesson.
Yeah.
If I could ever learn that lesson.
I saw a thing today, not to compare the two or trying to make fun of anyone necessarily, but I just happened to run across It was an article, and I was like, "This is where we are in a society now."
Oh.
It was an article about a guy. I'm not familiar with him at all. His name, I believe, is Billy Porter, and he seems to be some sort of fashion guy or something.
Oh yeah, and had to slam on who was
Harry
it?
Styles.
Yeah, because
So he was angry because Esquire or Vogue or some magazine put Harry Styles on the cover in a dress and made a big deal of the fact that he dresses in a lot of, sort of female clothing or whatever you call it, gender neutral.
And it's not the first time that Harry Styles has done that. Harry Styles has been doing that for years.
But Billy Porter was upset because he believes that he was the one who created that. like
what? Like right after Alice Cooper?
Bowie, the New York Dolls, Elton John didn't. I don't know, but just the idea that two grown men are arguing about who gets the credit for wearing a dress on a magazine.
Yeah. I'm sorry, and I mean,
so ridiculous.
Kurt Cobain, if you just want to go back to the early '90s, right?
Did he wear a dress? Yeah, he did.
Yeah, several times.
That's yeah. I don't know. Yeah, it's just silliness. It's just
we're stupid. Well, here's the thing: is I know who Harry Styles is. I don't know who Billy Porter.
Yeah,
I don't know who
there you
is.
go.
Yeah, I don't know who he is either. He's a guy who likes to dress in dresses. And
Harry Styles reaches that level, the fame level of like
household name. Yeah,
I could ask my mom if she's heard of Harry Styles.
He's that big.
I'd say yes.
Wow.
That's like,
I wasn't sure if I know Harry Styles. My daughter is a huge fan of Harry Styles. She actually sent me a text today. This is the all Harry Styles episode of Around
the episode you never thought you needed.
She sent me a text.
Bio comic. Oh yeah, the Harry Styles story.
Oh, thank Joe Galuzik for Dennis Rodman as the Chicago reference.
There you go.
Famously wearing dresses.
A wedding dress. He was married in a wedding dress. But my daughter texted me because she's so excited. She said if it's true, she was gonna cry. That apparently there's a rumor that Harry Styles is going to play Star Fox.
In the MCU.
Eros in the MCU, and she's very, very excited about that. So there you go. But I didn't know that Harry Styles was that big of a name. I mean, I knew he was pretty big, but I wasn't.
One
sure
Direction was huge, Sal.
Well, he's on a lot of things. He's just sort of like now one of those people that just like pops up on things.
I mean, he's hosted SNL. I'm not a huge Harry Styles fan, but he was very good at the Rock and Roll Hall of Fame. He did the induction speech for Stevie Nicks, and he was very good at it.
He is one of the very few people that my daughter listens to that I don't just shake my head at completely.
Right.
There you go.
Joe Galuzik asked, I don't know Harry Styles. Is he kin to AJ Styles? The wrestler? No, I don't believe they're maybe. I don't know.
In a way, Joe, we're all related.
Perhaps, perchance.
All right, enough about Harry Styles.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Chris, since it's so fresh on your mind, as you probably just
He's reading it right now.
And page 147.
The first page is.
I'm not. You guys have not read it, correct?
I did read it.
You did read it.
I did not read it.
So it's Chris and Sal on this one a little bit. Destroy All Monsters, a Reckless book by Ed Brubaker and Sean Phillips. It's in the Reckless series, the Ethan Reckless books, which there are now. How many? This is the third one. So
the third.
Reckless, Friend of the Devil, and now Destroy All Monsters. And it's Brubaker Phillips. What are we going to say? Oh, it's even more awesome than the last one. It's just,
Well, is it? Less awesome than
it's awesome in a different way. I think Sal will probably agree. The main story through this, I mean, there's a great murder mystery and a thing, plan gone bad and violence and all that. The one that made this one different is that it's really focusing on Ethan and Anne's relationship. Anne is the much younger woman who runs the the theater. She's the projectionist and manager of the
theater.
It is his sidekick. That's what she does in the show. It feels like it feels like a Rockford Files. So I always think of it as a show. But in the series, she's his sidekick, and this goes into the history of how they actually met, and kind of has an arc of them, kind of almost ending their relationship. That's the tension in this story that I really enjoyed. The story around it was, the detective story is fine, but it's really about the personal relationship between Ethan and Anne. And we get a foreshadowing that Anne is going to die before her time, and that's going to be a story for another day. And so
you could read it that way. You could read she leaves. But it was a gut punch nonetheless. I will say, as I began reading this book, I was sort of like, oh, this is a bit of a letdown. I'm not into this story as much initially. And then
the story as a whole, or the detective story?
As a whole, I was sort of like, it didn't feel, it almost felt like, oh, it's a formula. Like, he kind of has started everyone a little bit the same, where it's this sort of formula almost of,
he gets in a horrible situation, and then it's like 4 months earlier.
Right. Exactly. And so I was just didn't have the same feel as the first two. By the end of the book, it was like a gut punch, that epilogue about Anne, and the fact that maybe she dies at some point. That's a story for another day. Just the whole way he sort of set up the ending, not to give away too much, but just the way that he sort of showed that. And it's interesting because in reading all three of these volumes, I kind of keep going, who's Ethan telling this to? Because it's narrated in a way that it's very, very self-aware. Ethan is aware he's talking to someone. It's not like his inner thoughts. You can tell from the narration that he is speaking to someone. And he's telling this story. He's not just narrating. It's not just his inner thoughts or whatever else. So I kept going, I wonder who he's telling this to. Who is he telling this story to? Back of my head every time and then you kind of see at the end of this one what's going on there. It definitely a different feel I felt to the first two, certainly not in a bad way. Honestly, emotionally, I think I was much more connected to this book than the first two, as much as I enjoyed the first two.
Well, that's really about what this one was about, was that personal connection, why Ethan and Anne are so close. They're both oddballs, but what kind of binds them together. Yeah,
agreed. Very much enjoyed it. I felt very much connected to them. Like you said, the murder mystery is good. It's kind of a almost classic in some ways. Los Angeles, government versus the little guy. There's of course there's a real estate element.
There's always has to be a land grab.
Yeah, there has to be
an LA story. Yeah,
right.
It's either about water or land grabs, or both.
But also some interesting information about sort of the history of Los Angeles, some topical stuff in there, and he wrote about it in the back, like sort of his back page. He kind of writes about the idea of that
afterward.
Yeah, he found out sort of what we find out in the book about Los Angeles, because I didn't know anything about that particular town in Los Angeles. He kind of says the same thing. He didn't know anything about the history, and so that was one of the things that he inspired him to write this. But really, really good. I love this format. I love that, like, every 6 months I get a new one, and I told Sean Phillips this over, I think, Instagram, like, just keep making them. I will keep buying them, because it's a perfect little pulp novel every time that it comes out for me. I will keep buying them for sure.
It's almost like that the great TV show that you love to binge. You'll wait a year for it, and that's no problem. And then whenever it comes out, it's just that moment that you've been waiting for, and then you just devour it.
Yeah,
that's the same thing with these books.
So are there any monsters in this book?
Well, there are.
Or the most horrifying monster of all?
Man. That's right. Yeah, there's no actual. There is no supernatural elements to the Reckless universe. There's no superheroes. There's no superpowers. There's no monster. There's no fantasy elements.
True monster. It is very much. Each of us.
Yeah, it does feel very much like a Rockford Files mini series or something, or the sort of 70s 80s TV show, cop TV shows that I think Brubaker's probably a big fan of. It has that feel, but I thought this one, the first two were great in that way. I felt like this one a little bit elevated the Reckless universe. I feel
it dives deeper into it. I don't think that you could ever debut a series with a book like this. By volume 3, we're starting to be vested in the characters, and you want to know more about them, and so you actually see some character growth and evolution, and the time frame is playing out. That's what I like, is that as these stories happen, it's pretty large chunks of time that pass. This one takes place in 88, 89?
Yep. 88, I believe.
Yeah. So I know for Sal and I, even more so than Tom, it's starting to get to a point that I remember as like a young adult.
I mean, I was 17 years old in 1988, so that's my high school years. I definitely remember. I wasn't running around chasing bad guys, but I was probably on the other end of that spectrum.
Yeah, you were solving crimes.
Oh, well, of course.
Everyone was in the 80s. Everyone was. Yeah.
It was like teenage crimes, It wasn't like adult crimes, high school crimes.
Yeah, exactly.
Yeah. Joe, speaking of Rockford Files, Joe on the comments thread says you have to know that Brubaker loves the Rockford Files, and actually he's been on record many, many times talking about like his dream job would be to write Rockford Files episodes.
I think he's also said that his dream job is to write Archie comics. So I think
So what is it, Ed Brubaker? What is your dream?
Make up your mind.
I think what he's saying is he wants to write for Riverdale.
Yeah, basically.
Like, wait a second.
Down with that.
Betwixt these two worlds.
KJ Eldridge says, I have to really catch up on my Brubaker Phillips non-Marvel DC / Wildstorm reading. That's a lot. I think I've only read Kill or Be Killed of all of their collaborations. Oh, yeah, you should definitely. Ooh. They've been continually putting together.
Yeah. Just start with Sleeper.
Yeah, there's so much good stuff from them. I love that they've, and according to Brubaker in the back of the book, I mean, he seems surprised at how successful the format has been. Like, this was a bit of an experiment for them, I think, to come out with hardcovers, not single issues, and I think the reception to it has been great. So that's awesome, because I want them to keep doing it. I just want more and more and more. I just want a nice whole bookshelf of Brubaker Phillips hardcovers in the world.
It's your version of like my father-in-law's bookshelf of Louis L'Amour backs.
Yeah,
pumping them out.
Nothing wrong with that. I got a few Louis L'Amour books laying around here somewhere, but
I want to get your all's opinion on something. It's more it's comic related, but more TV. We'll call this a snippet of ACTV, of what you could hear on ACTV even this week. Since we missed this week, because
a sample.
What do you guys think about the Why the Last Man TV news? The unfortunate news that that they are not going to renew for season 2.
I'll be honest, I got bored with the show pretty early on. I didn't, and I don't know why. I mean, I didn't have. It's obviously a little bit different than the, but I mean, it's many years later. Bye, Chris. We're in a much different.
Sorry.
Yeah, I'm out of here.
I had to shut
You
my
asked me a question, then just fucking leave.
No, I still have my headphones on. I was listening, dear. Don't worry. Keep talking. I'll finish the dishes.
I don't know what it was about the show necessarily that didn't really interest me, but I will. I wanted to. It's funny that you brought this up. I ran across a tweet about it and I retweeted it because I just thought it was sort of an interesting tweet about this show. Let me see if I can read it here. It's by Eliza Clark, who I don't know what she does on the show, but she is the show. She is the showrunner of Y the Last Man, and her statement on it was, "We have learned that we will not be moving forward with FX on Hulu for season 2 of Y the Last Man. I have never in my life been more committed to a story, and there is so much more left to tell. Y the Last Man is about gender, about how oppressive systems inform identity. We had a gender-diverse team of brilliant artists led by women at almost every corner of our production. Producers, writers, directors, cinematographers, production design, costume design, stunt coordinators, and more. It is the most collaborative, creatively fulfilling, and beautiful thing I've ever been a part of. We don't want it to end. FX has been an amazing partner. We have loved working with them, and we're sad YTLM is not going forward with FX on Hulu, but we know that someone else is going to be very lucky to have this team and this story. I've never experienced the remarkable solidarity of this many talented people. We are committed to finding why its next home," which I found interesting. The commentary on it and the idea, and well, like I said, I didn't not enjoy the show for any particular reason. It just didn't find it very interesting. But I find it interesting that their statement on it is much more about the sort of agenda of the show and the idea of everything behind the show other than the fucking story. Like nowhere is the fucking story mentioned in this. It's all about the amazing amount of people that are diverse, and it's all what the story is about, what the show is about in the idea of gender and oppressive systems. But could maybe that be why the fucking show didn't really catch on with anyone, because you're more concerned with that than telling a good story?
I didn't dislike the show, but whenever I heard the news that it wasn't going to be renewed for season 2, there was almost a sense of relief, because I had watched like the first 2 episodes. There was almost a sense of relief where I was like, oh, okay, I don't have to watch that now.
Yeah, I'm not going to miss it. It wasn't something that really, and I loved the book. I was a big fan of the book. I read the entire series. I've thought about going back and read it again, but
It didn't survive the Tom, will I fall asleep while watching this test.
Financially upsetting news, because I was hoping to eBay this sucker.
Yeah.
I will say though that also that bar of will I fall asleep during it is very high. Because I will fall asleep during things that are probably pretty okay. Like the first couple times I tried to watch WandaVision, I fell asleep every time. Couldn't make it through the first episode. Finally powered through. So I'm just saying it's not a low bar. Like,
there's a lot of great shows that
there's a lot of great shows that I will fall asleep during without any hesitation. Just like Squid Game, fell asleep during it. Couldn't.
Yeah. There's slow parts of that show. I like that show. But there's a couple episodes, like one good episode, 2 slow episodes.
It's
one
kind
good
of like a sleepy rhythm to it too.
Yeah.
Where it's kind of like lulls you. So take that for what it is, but it did not survive the ultimate Tom test.
Okay. Well, there you go.
Watch this after 9:30. Will I finish it?
Not gonna
am
happen.
I just going to be like, I'm going to sleep?
Yeah.
I don't know. I don't know what it is. I'd have to go back and sort of study the show and try and figure, if I really cared, to try and figure out what it was about it that I didn't like. I didn't like
that the main character was kind of this weak, unlikable, just putz.
Well, I think that part would be okay
if there was a strong enough character around him to make up for it, which
well,
was
no, if
to find as well.
I think 7 or what
355.
She was that character, but I think it would be fine if he was this sort of insecure, inept character if he wasn't gorgeous with a 6-pack.
Yeah.
Like very rarely are there guys running around on the planet that are beautiful with a perfect body and are completely insecure about themselves and incapable of anything. Like, I don't know. I mean, I'm sure there are some of those, but it doesn't make for a very entertaining protagonist in a show. He's just not likable that much. I don't know.
The best headline I saw, and it was from a female entertainment writer for like Variety or something. The headline was, "Why this last man?" I thought that was pretty clever.
I mean, I think in the comic book, Yorick is not a typical heroic figure. I mean, he doesn't want to be a hero. He's not interested, and he's not very capable. And
he's kind of a doofus.
He's kind of a doofus. And I have no problem with that, but pick a guy that looks a bit more like a doofus, or at least can act like a doofus to some. I don't know. Maybe he was fun.
It's in the comic book. I pictured him as kind of this midway point between like Brendan Fraser and who's the comedian
from The Office. Like get the guy from The Office. What's his name from The Office? Although he's kind of jacked now.
Yeah, part of me also thinks like, an actual pandemic happening in between when this book was written and when it's made. I think there's a little bit of that too, where I'm just like, like I don't know, like it's tough when you write a story and like the central act of it seems like kind of a crazy metaphor about like the world, and then something happens that makes that metaphor like a little less crazy sounding, like all of a sudden it's like, I don't know, man, this kind of like
it doesn't really ring true now.
I don't know, or it's just like too close. Reality. What was once fantastical is now like maybe a little got reeled in a little bit, and now it's sort of like
not so fun. Not so fun to pretend what a pandemic would look like, since we
just a touch. I don't think it's like, I don't know, like that was when I was watching it before I fell asleep, that was one thought I had, was I was sort of like, I don't know, man, do I want to watch this thing about like a pandemic sweeping, I don't know. It just struck me as like, I never really thought of that before, but like the reality of life is, when did that book come out? Like 8, 12, 10, longer than that. Years and years and years ago. It's unfortunately, the world in some ways is kind of, not made it less relevant, but made the tone of it feel. I'd be interested in rereading the book to see if I have that feeling of that, because I remember, when you read something like the first time, you're like, oh, that's how could
that would never happen?
That would never, and obviously, like, not every man on earth has died, but like, yeah, dude, pandemics happen and they like sweep the world. So I think maybe some of that, and I know it was beset with all kinds of problems from the pandemic, and that it got delayed, and like they had to recast all these people, and just like all this stuff. Like, it seemed like the odds were maybe stacked against it in a way that it just wasn't going to be, instead of being like this, oh my God, what a crazy story. Like, think if you haven't read the comic book and you see the description of it, like, are you going to be like, oh, cool, a pandemic story, like, it's, you know what I mean? Like,
great, another
sweet, cool. Like, it seems
less. Is this a documentary? Is this?
But written in 2002.
Yeah. I mean, I don't. That's a total just guess, but I can imagine in a world where it's so competitive there's so many shows on, right? And like, I don't know, like
it wasn't a terrible show. It was just, just for whatever reason, I didn't really get into it. I mean, I love Diane Lane.
Yeah, she's one of the best parts of it.
She is.
I like 355 in this.
She was very good.
It's so competitive.
Wouldn't surprise me if Netflix could pick this up. I could see Amazon picking it up. It just
Peacock. Who knows? Maybe.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. I mean, it's just hard for a show to stick. Like it gets harder and harder. The competition. There's so many things that are just, and frankly, things that are just wilder and just more attention grabbing and more like
Squid Games.
Squid Games, like that's fucking wild. Like that, something like that pops. It
gets your attention. Goddamn,
gets your attention, baby.
Well, speaking of getting your attention, if that got your attention, you can hear more conversations like that about everything TV and movie related on ACTV. You can check that out by becoming a patron. Run over to Around Comics, patreon.com/Around Comics.
Patreon. Join our patron page. Give us your money so that we don't have to pay for this to be on the air.
Well, we're all working 2 jobs apiece.
Just so we could
bring this to you.
Hey, call in live during the show, 1-312-967-6282, or
this box is not free.
Call in if you'd like to. If you're gonna call in though, have something to talk about. Have a question.
Don't waste my time.
Yeah, we have things to do. Like you can
call in, but we will hang up on.
We have the right. Listen, we have the right to hang up on you.
I tell you, we don't do like creator interviews much anymore. Occasionally, we'll have some creator friends on, but I was thinking about using the call-in number, and I want Dave Wachter to call in and talk about his new project, which I read this week.
Dave, are you out there? Dave, if you're listening,
Dave, can you hear us?
He's probably like making something,
He is. Right now, he's making Star Wars: The High Republic Trail of Shadows. Did you guys check that out?
Not yet. It's on my list of things to get to, though. I didn't read. I got caught up in. I read some Kirby Eternals. It's been several decades since I think I read it.
I want to hear about that more than Star Wars.
It was funny because a lot. You know me. I love the online discourse, and it's funny to see sort of all the reactions to Eternals. As it's coming out, and sort of like the sort of like the tension between Eternals sort of being like there's nothing to the Eternals other than Kirby drawing it. Like there's not a lot there, and no matter how many times people try and do something with it, it's always sort of like I don't know. Doesn't seem like there's much to this. And now they've made sort of a movie out of this thing where it's like, well, if it just looks like people, like, well, who cares? So it's been.
If it doesn't look like this.
If it doesn't have like wild ass robots and shit, why are we doing this? Yeah. Right. And it started because it's been a long time since I read it, but years and years and years. And so I was digging through it, and it's really funny too because it's like I don't think I realized this probably when I read this as like a teenager of how clearly the Eternals is such a like classic Kirby thing in that it's very comics too, in that it's so obviously someone read the book Chariots of the Gods, right? Which is that like it was like a book that came out in the late 60s. It was like a pseudoscience book about how aliens had visited ancient societies and help build temples and stuff like that. And it's so clear that either Jack Kirby read that and was like, oh, I could do something with that, or someone pitched him the idea. I don't know the mechanics of it, but like from the fact that like the font, the typeface on it looks like the book Chariots of the Gods, the way the typeface of that is set up, like
so they're not even faking it at this point.
Yeah, it's just like obviously based so heavily on that, or just the concept of like, what if there's these aliens that came to Earth and like influenced what happened on Earth, and I
feel like we all need very high hair right now.
Look at Max. Well, and it's funny to read it because the first couple of issues, I'm like, oh, I'm into this. Okay, this is kind of cool, right? It's like, I can respect Kirby's desire to be like, I'm just going to do stories where I can draw rad shit. So, like, if this story lets me draw, like, a big-ass, faceless god robot called the Celestial, like, let's roll with it. Yeah. Can I draw a picture of an ape trapped inside a machine being experimented on? All right, cool. Like, I can get with that Jack Kirby,
want to do
that approach to it. Yeah, just like all I'm doing is wild stuff. I'm not messing around with like anything normal. It's all going to be crazy, right? So the first couple of issues, I'm like, oh, I got it. And then I remember why I always find the Eternals so boring is the actual Eternals start showing up like about 4 issues in. At the beginning, it's just one character. It's like Icarus taking this anthropologist to like where the gods are in the, in the Andes Mountains, and the deviants show up. And the deviants are great because it's like such a, like, again, Kirby is like, well, you know what? I'm going to like, the deviants, they all look different. So I'm going to have to draw a bunch of wild ass, weird looking bad guys constantly. And just like the new gods, the bad guys are the way more interesting characters than any of like the good guys, pretty much, they're so much more memorable visually and just like their machinery and stuff. And it's like, oh, okay, you got this one guy, you got Icarus, who hides his name is like Ike Harris. Is his alter ego name.
Of course it is.
Of course it is, right? And so like you have that, and you have the deviants, and then all of a sudden like other Eternals start showing up, like Circe and all these other characters. And then I was like, oh shit, that's right. I don't care about any of these other characters. And I really wish we didn't have to spend any time with them. I wish we just talked about the deviants and like some weird ass alien stuff all the time. I don't want to hear about Sprite. I do not care about like any of the actual Eternals. It was just funny because it was like I felt like transported through time back to like 13-year-old Tom reading it, having the same reaction where I was like, oh no, go back to just like the giant pages of like the Celestial, like I don't want to hear about like these weird.
Was this Kirby's return to Marvel after the Fourth World stuff?
Okay. Yes. Yeah. I mean, and so the first couple of issues, I was like, oh yeah, this is rad. I'm into this. Like, this is just some wild ass science fiction stuff. And then I was like, oh no, god damn. Now we gotta like meet all these characters that I'm kind of like not that entirely into hearing about. So yeah, that was my dive back into the Eternals.
I have never, you explained it much better than I ever could as far as why the Eternals is just blah, and it always has been. And like I said, it looks amazing. Obviously, it's there's stuff in it where Jack Kirby is able to just sort of completely do whatever the hell he wants and unleash his amazing abilities. And there's no question, he's the king, right? Like he does shit nobody else. But I think the Eternal's a perfect example of like anyone that shits on the idea that Stan Lee didn't have anything to do with the Fantastic Four or with all the other fucking comics that or someone. Maybe it wasn't Stan. Maybe it was someone else. but it sure shit wasn't Jack Kirby writing the Fantastic Four.
Sometimes people need an editor.
Yeah. Sometimes right? Too much is not a good thing, and I just can't. I've never gotten into the Eternals. When they announced the movie, I'm just like, I don't know. Maybe they'll make it cool. I'm sure people will love it. At this point, people will fucking
they'll cape up for any Marvel movie. They'll be like, this is great, even though in their heart of hearts, they're like,
So I saw this today, and it was regarding kind of what I would call middle of the road show that had come out, and the excuse that I think a lot of comic book fans, especially from our era, that remember a time whenever like the Roger Corman Fantastic Four was kind of a high watermark for seeing comic book stuff translated to film. And so I see this excuse a lot, and it really is people excusing mediocre storytelling by saying, well, at least we got this, which is still amazing to see. We'll say, why the Last Man? That's not what it was about, but how lucky we are that we live in a time whenever something like Why the Last Man can be done. And
we are spoiled.
Therefore, if it's not done right, it's still okay. Or if it's not done at a high level.
I mean,
I think people give stuff a pass sometimes just because it's a comic property.
I'll say though, the thing about the actual Eternals characters being really boring, it goes beyond just those characters. To me, being kind of like, oh, okay, whatever. Like, being very much like, all right, my guys, I just did the New Gods, and I had like ran out of ideas for good guys, and now I'm just gonna like bad guys. I'm good. Kirby can spit out the bad guys, right? Like every page with the deviants is like, I got a toad guy, I got a guy who looks like the devil, like he's just spitting that out, and it's like, I guess we got Icarus, let's take some Greek gods and kind of like, whatever. Like, we'll just spit those out too, right? And
that's interesting though, because like, the two parts of this book that work really well is the celestial stuff.
Yes.
Because Kirby can just draw the fuck out of it.
Yes,
you know what I mean? You're just like, holy shit, that looks
cool.
Yeah, that's cool. And then the other part is the deviants, because it's like he can just twist them and turn and make all sorts of crazy looking little monsters, and he drew monsters for decades, in all the Marvel books. So that's another thing but when it comes to the good guys, it's like, well, they have to look like heroes, which are kind of bland, to be honest.
Yeah.
You know what I mean? And so now it's going to rely on your ability to make characters through story, Jack. How do you do that? Let's see what you got.
It's funny because it's also like, it's lowbrow and highbrow. So, like it's so obviously inspired by this very like pseudoscientific thing. But, Kirby still fits in like sort of these, like there's, the idea that the deviant, then, if the deviants are so bad, then why did the Celestials make them bad? Like there's that of like, well, if this is what they are, like, are the Celestials actually good guys? Like he leaves that very like up in the air of like they're here. They might just like erase everything and start over. They might, and you're never quite. He does a good job of like in those big picture things of being like, oh, okay, like I don't know, is this good or bad? Yeah, like are they good guys? Are they bad guys? Yeah, like should we be pumped about them? And then here's Icarus, and then it's like, oh no, okay.
I'm bored again.
I know, dude. I'm bored again. You used up.
Joe G said he enjoyed the Game and Run. He has the Kirby Eternals omnibus. He never read it. That's
There's a lot of Kirby omnibuses out there like that.
Greg Porter said he never read it.
That thing was grabbing big money on the secondary market for a while, because that omnibus went out of print before they announced the movie, and I think it was kind of a short print run. So if you got one of those, treat it nicely.
I don't know. I might.
Flip it.
Yeah, flip it, baby.
Yeah.
Cash.
Yeah, I mean,
I feel the same way about the Eternals.
It's just why it's just like it's also like it really shows Kirby's skill at like plugging into the like lizard brain of like a 13-year-old nerd. Right? Or he's just like in that sweet spot of like, I'm gonna draw some like sick ass shit, and you're gonna be like, oh yeah, Celestials look rad. They look like he makes them look like incredible. It looks awesome. You're like, oh, this is great, right? And you know, he has the 2-page spread, right? Of like that's how every issue kind of starts off with. This is like with this scene of like weird frogmen trying to blow up New York City, or like a celestial who's got like the code to erase humanity written on his hand. You know, like it's just
yeah.
It's like, yeah, he's plugged directly into like 12-year-old Tom's brain of like
for sure.
Yeah, that was my like, favorite part of the Guardians of the Galaxy, which actually I think in the comic it was in like the Annihilation series. Whenever Nowhere is the detached head of a Celestial in space.
Yeah, yes,
it's like that is Kirby would love that.
Now, if I could go back in time, and I'd say, hey, listen, Jack. I know you know more about comics than me. Just skip the good guys. You don't even need them. Just have the deviants and the celestials and humans, and stop messing around with these boring ass good guys who like no one can figure out.
Bunch of bad guys. That's all we need. We don't.
Yeah. So, who cares, man? Just show me a bunch of Toad men.
Yeah. Well, I didn't read the Eternals. I read a book that I thought was appropriate for the holiday that's coming up, Halloween. I read a book called Lugosi. Lugosi, the Rise and Fall of Hollywood's Dracula. I've always been a fan of the Universal monsters and Dracula, werewolf, Frankenstein, all that stuff, and so this really attracted me. It's by a person named Corin Shadmi, 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 published by Humanoids. I found it on Hoopla, but it's basically a biography of Bela Lugosi, and it has some, sort of fantasy elements in it to a certain degree. Sort of dramatic license stuff, dreams and things like that. But for the most part, it's a straightforward telling of his life story, at least from the age of, there is some stuff of him as a kid. And, one of the things I think it did really well is sort of show and maybe remind people of like how big of a star he was at one time. Like he created a genre. Like there wasn't monster movies before Dracula. That was, and he was doing it on stage in a play, and he kind of actually had to fight to play Dracula in the movie. And but once that came out, it was like that was, it changed Hollywood. All of a sudden, everybody needed monster movies. It created the genre, and he was a gigantic star. But then he can't quite ever get past that in one way or another. He's
typecast.
He's typecast to a certain degree, but he also, he can't get past it. He wants everything to be Dracula to some degree, in the sense of if it's not as powerful as Dracula, then it needs to be more like Dracula, if that makes sense. So he sort of creates a bit of his own stumbles in that way, of where he has this thing that he's done really, really well, but maybe that's all he can do really, really well. And, there's ego involved, and there's drugs and alcohol and women. And he was a womanizer. He was divorced 3 times. He got heroin addict. He got hooked on pain medication, became, a junkie, basically, checked himself into He lost all of his money. He spent money like crazy. Like he just, no matter how much he earned, he would spend more than he earned. And he wanted to live this very, he wanted to live the lifestyle of the star that he was. But unfortunately, he wasn't very good at negotiating. He got paid $500 a day for Dracula.
Oh, wow.
Yeah, and it became a gigantic success and everything, but he was just not very good at negotiating for himself, and yet he spent money like he was the biggest star in the world, but he wasn't being paid like the biggest star in the world, and he continued to spend money like he was. He just put on an act almost of like, I'm Bela Lugosi, people are going to expect me to, but he ended up losing everything, and it ends up being a very tragic story. And we saw part of it. If you guys have ever seen the Ed Wood.
Yeah. Love Ed Wood. Martin Landau. Yes.
Yeah. Martin Landau won an Academy Award for that. But yeah. And you see sort of the end days of Bela Lugosi, but it was a really interesting story. A lot of stuff that I didn't know about him, a lot of stuff. Unfortunately, I don't know that it came off like he came off all that well in the whole thing. I don't know that it comes off particularly sympathetic for him, which is sad. Like he was sort of trapped in this thing where like he played this great role and he could never ever get past it. He could never, whether it was people wanting him to do that role again or whether it was his own sort of, I don't know, ego. I think a lot of it was ego, where it was just like he, once he got famous, he expected everything to be done his way and everything to go his way, and it just doesn't always work out like that. But and then there's a great section in it about sort of his rivalry with Boris Karloff, and it was good. I mean, the only complaint I had about it really was at times it felt like a visual representation of a Wikipedia page. You know what I mean? Like a little bit, like it was just sort of dryly telling you some facts, and it was, there were drawings to go along with it, but it was almost like, I don't know. I kind of wanted the author to delve a little deeper. I felt like there was more, or if not delve deeper, at least like give me your own perspective on it, as opposed to making it a documentary or autobiography. Like do something a little more interesting. Like, if you look at the book, we talked about it a couple months ago, the Ed Gein book. To me, that was a great combination of factual information and also, sort of a perspective, and some things that, weren't necessarily factual, but just an idea, a representation of how people reacted to it or how people thought about it, at least how the authors thought about it. So I would say that, like, maybe if anything is missing from this book, it's that there's not really a perspective on it. It sort of dryly just kind of lays out the facts of his life, which are interesting. But I think it could have been a little more, could have leaned that way a little bit more. I think it would have actually.
Did you guys ever read the Rick Geary book on H.H. Holmes?
The Devil in the White City?
Well, the comic one. It's very much the same way. It is an illustrated Wikipedia entry. It's great if you want to know the history of H.H. Holmes, but
right.
But yeah, it's, and you're like, okay, there's a story here, but this is really trying to be as kind of like a History Channel documentary more than telling, that's story, right?
That's kind of what this felt like at times. It's just like, okay, this is just sort of facts and not any, and even then it's weird because the facts are debatable, some of it. You know what I mean? Like it presents information in a factual way when maybe it's actually not factual.
Okay. Yeah.
Does that make sense?
Yeah. It tries to wipe away any pretense of fictionalizing anything by presenting it as documentary, even though all of the facts may not be supported. Sure.
Yeah, that kind of So I don't know. I think it was good though. I did like it. I did enjoy it. The art was good. It almost had like a Charles Adams feel to the art a little bit, and it wasn't super realistic. I mean, the characters, he looks like Bela Lugosi to a certain degree, but there's a bit of cartoonism to it, and yeah, I don't know. I got a sense of a little bit of like Charles Adams. It's all black and white, grayscale, the whole book.
He's at the forefront of making vampires sexy.
Yeah,
as opposed to Nosferatu.
Right.
Yeah, as the not well. I mean, I'm sure there's always somebody who's there's somebody who's into everything. So I'm sure there's somebody who, but sort of like our modern visual representation of like vampires keep getting sexier, man.
Mm-hmm. And
sparkly, young.
That was definitely a big part of the book of the power he had over women, or sort of the charisma that he had. I don't think you would consider him a classically handsome guy necessarily, but there was a sexuality about him that certainly, virulent, Hungarian virulent,
sort of, yeah.
Gotta watch out for those Hungarians,
especially the virulent ones.
And the virulent, yeah.
Yeah, so pretty interesting, pretty good book if you're into wanting to know more about Bela Lugosi, the first Dracula.
Nice.
Dracula.
Well, check out that Star Wars High Republic book that Walker.
Dave didn't call. God damn it!
He did not call, but take a look at that. We can chat about it next week. I want to get. I always like talking Star Wars, especially I know Tom really enjoys that. I love the timeline at the beginning of this. It's the first time I've seen it in a comic that they are you have to direct you to when in the Star Wars timeline this happens. So
I was having someone called to the hotline.
Oh no!
But I was having a problem with the interface. I don't know, something happened. I'm not sure. But hold on one sec. I just want to make sure I didn't miss something here. Let me see if this works.
Call me about Star Wars.
Could have been Dave. It might have been Dave. Who knows?
Call me about Star Wars. We can talk Star Wars. Call the Tom Cater Star Wars hotline. You call and I'll talk to you about Star Wars for 5 minutes.
Okay. Well, okay. So the person here, we did get a voicemail. So they so let's see.
Tape delayed live call. Live to tape. I heard my name. I can't.
Do we need a translator?
All right, riveting.
Yeah, this is outstanding radio, Sal.
You guys know
we can't hear what's happening.
Yeah.
Oh, really?
Yeah.
No. All I could hear was like my name.
Yeah.
Okay, because I can hear it.
Okay.
I can't.
All right, so I'll say he said, "Hey, this is Joe D. Tom's analysis of Kirby's Eternals is pretty much spot on, but the same analysis, for what he used, could be said for the New Gods."
Oh yeah. Most of the New Gods, the good guys are fucking boring, except for Orion is the only one with a little bit of, but he's actually a bad guy.
Yeah. Oh,
who happens to live with the good guys. Yeah,
Mr. Miracle.
Mr. Miracle is a good exception to that as well.
Yeah.
But I mean, it's like, who gives a fuck about Light Ray? Or like, you know, like they're just like, you know, like they're not. None of them are as cool as any of the bad guys.
Come on, Forager.
On Apocalypse, yeah, exactly, right? Like you got Kanto, that guy with the assassin with the mustache. I mean, that's fucking cool, right? Darkseid, yeah, always better. The bad guys are always better in those.
Granny Goodness,
yeah,
maybe just. Oh, it was Joe G. It was Joe G.
Yeah.
Sorry, Joe. We missed. I don't know. Maybe the problem with the Google Voice.
It's the same criticism can definitely be made of the New Gods, of like the fact that I can't remember the names of most of the good guys unless someone like showed me pictures of them, and I'd be like, oh yeah, I guess Highfather is one of them, you know, like
yeah. Is Metron a good guy, or is Metron kind of?
Wow, that's a good question, Chris.
Yeah, got a cool chair.
He's got a fucking rad. There's a guy in Eternals with a fucking chair too. It's like, come on, dude. Kirby, I know you love your chairs. Guys riding in chairs. It looks cool.
It did look
fucking cool.
Maybe he just was trying to recreate like Professor X. I need a guy in a chair.
Oh wow, yeah. Think about that. Metron's like the next generation Professor X. Like, this is a better fucking wheelchair. He travels through time. Like, it's the next level up to that.
I think there's something there. Yeah,
there's something to it, right? But it's, I mean, it's
none of it matters because that dude Kamal is jacked now.
Yeah.
So people are very excited about the Eternals.
Very excited about the jacked guy,
the jacked
comedian
that was not jacked, but now this is the weird thing I found about geek culture is like they hate people that are jacked unless they started out not jacked.
Nerdy. They got to start out nerdy like Chris Pratt.
Then they get jacked and they love them. But if you just come on the scene jacked, oh well, you're just an asshole. Then you're just
yeah.
You can't start jacked.
Gonna kick sand in my face.
Yeah. Yeah. Yep.
All right.
Yep.
Well, there you go.
All right, I'm gonna go look through the good guys.
The fourth one. I want to ask you guys: are either of you watching the show Midnight Mass?
Watch the first episode today.
Very interesting show. I continue to be surprised by it.
Really?
Yeah. I continue to it goes in places that I don't expect it to go.
Okay. How many episodes in are you?
I don't know, 5 maybe.
Okay.
4 or 5, something like that. Yeah.
Okay.
Yeah. So
okay, Marta and I started watching it tonight. Oh, if you want a little levity in your life, a little haha, we started watching Ghosts. It is very amusing.
What is Ghosts?
It's on CBS, new sitcom that I don't even know if you'd call it a sitcom, but it's a comedy on little half-hour comedy on CBS.
Haunted people.
Yes.
Are we reading the Geezers for next week? Is that next week?
That should be next Tuesday. Geezers? Yes. So why don't you play the Trade Talks?
I'm not ready.
Love this one.
I'm not prepared for this.
Is it your favorite stinger?
This is our Trade Talk.
Yeah, there you go. So Trade Talk next week. The Geezers, the old Geezers, the Geezers.
Tom will be talking about the old Geezers.
Hey, look! I found Kirby drawing a vampire. Count Dragorin.
Dragorin. Oh,
yeah. Of course oh, there's a Frankenstein. Yeah, this is the planet that's like it's like
Universal Monster.
It's like a monster planet. Oh yeah, I remember that. That's good.
He just rushed that month. You know, he needed to come up with something.
That's fucking rad.
So Trade Talks next week. The Geezers. We've got ACTV coming up later this week, or actually be on Monday next week. Tom, you just put out the Tom versus Freedom Fighters Halloween episode, right?
It's a Halloween. I'm gonna do one about some haunted comics. I found this is my last thing about Kirby. Great example of totally forgettable good guys. The Forever People. Can't tell you one of their fucking names. All I know is they have a car. Then they're hippies. I don't know.
Hippie biker kind of.
I guess can't tell you anything else.
It's sort of they're kind of in a sand buggy space.
Were they friends with the Newsboy Legion?
Yes, they were. Yeah, they had like a supercar. The car was the coolest part. Mm-hmm. There's like one guy who's just like a cowboy.
Remember, was there a guy with a big red beard, right? Big mane of hair.
Yeah. Otherwise, the forgetful people.
I don't know
a goddamn thing about any
of
them.
Forgotten people. The
forgotten people. Yeah. Can't remember anything about them. So yeah, I'm gonna do some scary comics before Halloween because the next Freedom Fighters issue is about Santa Claus, and
should we do a special Halloween episode like we did 15 years ago? A special like
spooky.
You're not gonna make this like
like an audio play. You guys want to do an audio play?
I would do like a two-page audio play. I think
next week we're doing the Geezers. Mm-hmm. So what's the date after that? It's already November, right? We're kind of out of time for Halloween. I was going to say
for Halloween,
we could do like a special sort of what's your favorite horror comic? Bring your favorite horror trade or something, maybe.
That sounds like a good Patreon exclusive.
Oh, well, we could do that for Patreon.
Yeah.
Now for the freeloading slackers.
Yeah, absolutely.
Tom Caters, Werewolf by Day.
Tom, the soft touch Caters.
Yeah, the Forever People Caters.
Yeah, we'll do that maybe before or after we do ACTV this weekend. We'll do a quick little favorite horror comic, which will be fun. There you go. All right. See, Greg Porter said it's a great idea. All right, let's wrap this thing up. We still, even though you can comment on our live stream, we still love us some emails. So emails at info@aroundcomics.com. Excuse me. We talked about the Patreon, so you can help us out there. We really do appreciate it. Tom versus grab the Halloween episode. We got more ACTV coming out. Sal throws stuff out on the Patreon all the time, whether it's newsletters, articles, Big Geek Show, etc.
I've been a little slow this couple of weeks. I've been busy on something. I have a secret project. Secret project I've been working on. So
it's always worrying me.
Yeah, well, it's you guys will find out all about it eventually, but for now, it's hush hush. On the DL, on the download. Shh, quiet.
All right. So there you go. We got all that coming up. Everyone have a wonderful rest of your week and weekend. We'll be back for this here show next Tuesday, 8 o'clock Central Standard Time-ish. In the meantime.
In between time.
We'll be everywhere in
and
around
the forgotten people.
Lugosi.
Bella.